back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about cornerback Rodarius Williams and whether or not he's a good fit for the Detroit Lions in this year's draft. Let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. I kind of forgot my intro there for a second. And today we're talking about cornerback Rodarius Williams. Now, I've mocked Rodarius Williams to the Detroit Lions a few times. I've seen many people mock Rodarius Williams to the Detroit Lions. And I thought today was the day to watch some Rodarius and watch some of his film and really get a good feel on this cornerback and whether or not I think he fits the Detroit Lions. And I gotta say, a couple parts of his games I am extremely impressed with. And then there's other parts of his game where I'm like, ooh, I don't really like that. And we're going to touch on both in today's video. But I think this is, you guys asked for those mid to late round targets. You guys asked for those sleepers. Rodarius honestly might push into that category. He just might. He just might. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Quick little background on Rodarius Williams. If you didn't know, he is the brother of Greedy Williams out of LSU. He's actually the older brother, though. I know that may sound weird because he's still in college. Yes, he's the older brother of Greedy Williams. He's been in college for all 4 years. Started in 48 consecutive games. He actually initially looked like he was going to go to Oklahoma, but he ultimately chose Oklahoma State. So that's, you know, okay, I see you. You chose Oklahoma State over Oklahoma. But like I said, he's started in 48 consecutive games. He's been there every single year with Oklahoma State. And that will concern some people because he's set to turn 25 in September. So he's clearly not a very young rookie. He won't be a young rookie. I mean, if you kept him through his rookie deal, he's going to be pushing 29 by the time he's waiting for that extension, which is not a terrible thing. And that means that because of that experience, he could be more ready to go day one. But clearly, the guy is not going to be the youngest rookie. That is for sure. So that is a very big point I thought I would make here. He was a multiple sport athlete in high school as well. Rodarius Williams checks in at 6'1", 189 pounds. And if you look at the type of corners that we brought in, but also when you look at the corners that Glenn has worked with New Orleans Saints, you'll notice they all have about, you know, they're about 6 to 6'2". You know, they're all kind of in that height range. So he definitely checks the height list. He's slightly slim. I think he could definitely afford to add more muscle because I think that would actually help his game as well. So we'll get to that. But 189, slightly undersized. Like I said, the Saints usually have guys between 195 and 200, you know, somewhere in that range. So I think he can put on a little bit more weight, and then he'd get up there, you know, with the Quentin Dunbars, the Amanis, the Jeff Okudas in terms of size. But he definitely has the height. And actually, compared to a lot of cornerbacks in this class, he's actually one of the taller cornerbacks in this class. Statistically speaking, last season was a really good year for him. In 9 games played, get this, he only allowed 10 receptions. 10 receptions in 9 games played on 21 targets. I think that's kind of hard to believe a little bit. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, you talk about the competition you win against. I'm not saying you win against the best, but in the Big 12, there's some teams, right? I mean, you got Texas, Kansas State, Oklahoma. Those teams will throw the ball. You got Kansas, West Virginia, Iowa State, TCU, Tulsa was just not in the, you know, Big 12. But still, I mean, there's some talent there. So to only give up 10 receptions in 9 games, you're probably doing something right. I'll just say you're probably doing something right. So last season was clearly his best year. He allowed 10 receptions on 21 targets, 148 yards, 0 touchdowns, but 0 interceptions as well. A 71.1 pass rating. That pass rating won't be lower because he didn't have those interceptions. Okay, interceptions pushed that pass rating down fast. He didn't have those for Oklahoma State last season, but it's tough to get interceptions when you're only targeted 21 times. That's like 2 targets a game, man. Throw the ball his way, or don't throw his way because you don't want to do that. But then you look at the past, it wasn't as good. If he would have came out into the draft in 2019, he probably would have been a late day 3 pick. Statistically speaking, on 64 targets, he gave up 36 receptions for 436 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 picks, and a 93 pass rating. It wasn't a terrible year by any means, but it definitely would have probably landed him a day 3 spot. Now we could be pushing day 2 after last year. But you guys want to know about those mid-round to late-round prospects. You guys want to know about those potential sleeper picks. I think Rodarius Williams might push his way into that, especially if he still falls to day 3. If you go by the split statistically, from 1 to 9 yards, he allowed 7 completions on 10 targets for an 80.8 pass rating. From 10 to 19 yards, 1 completion on 3 targets for a 49.3 pass rating and 2 forced incompletions. And from 20-plus yards on 8 targets, only 2 receptions allowed with a 71.4 pass rating and 4 forced incompletions. He had 7, which put him somewhere around in the top 35 in the country. So pretty impressive there statistically last season. Definitely a way better step forward for him. Just didn't have those interceptions. Hasn't had an interception since 2018 where he had 2 picks. So it's been a minute since he's been able to get an interception, but that doesn't always mean it's a bad thing. 3 interceptions, we have 6 touchdowns allowed. Well, Yeah, he also gave up 6 touchdowns, okay? And he's just not getting targeted. Guys aren't throwing his way, and I'm fine with that. If my cornerback can take the receiver out of the game and they don't want to throw it his way, I can live with that. I don't need picks. So now we jump into the film side of things. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there were some parts of his game that just really impressed me, and there were other parts like, ooh, I don't like that. So we're going to dive into all of it, and we're going to break this down in a couple, sections here between coverage and run defense and pass rush and things like that. We're going to start with coverage first, and this is the area where he really impressed me. And I'm going to come out and say it right now. Out of the quarterbacks that I've watched, he is one of the best coverage corners in this class. I'm saying it. You don't have to believe me, but please, let me explain. Let me show you some clips. And if you want to, go check out your film on it, man. Go see what you guys think. But I think he's one of the best coverage corners in this class, hands down. Even today, I've watched a lot of corners. I mean, I've watched Aaron Robinson today. I watched Tyson Campbell today. I've watched Patrick Surtain today. I was watching J.C. Horn yesterday. I've watched a lot of corners, okay? I've been super focused on the secondary position. And to me, he's one of the best in college football. However, he's mainly an outside corner. Rarely saw him line up in a slot position. Start up close to the line of scrimmage. This is the press. He's going to be one of the best press corners probably coming out of this class day one because he's so seasoned in that area. He's had over 600 snaps playing in press situations. Like I said, it's always from the outside cornerback position, so that's important to mention. But as a press corner, he can definitely fill in day one. He's projected to be a really good press man fit right away for whoever needs that help. But I actually really like him in cover 3 as well, which I expect the Lions to run pretty heavy next season. And he's projected to be a scheme fit for the Lions, and I definitely see that. So we'll get to that at the end. But starting off with the press first, what makes him so good in press coverage is that his footwork is just on point. I mean, he's got some of the smoothest feet in this class. Seriously, I'm going to show you some clips here. But what's so great is he doesn't lose balance. He stays balanced, and he's able to just shift his body weight. Stays balanced, and he's able to just shift his body weight without over committing to one side or another. So all these little moves at the line doesn't break him. He stays right where he needs to be, right where he can get back on the play. It is clean watching his feet just work. I mean, where does he lack as a press corner? Well, like I said in the beginning, this guy could add some muscle, add some weight, add some bulk. He's not the most physical cornerback. Actually, he's not that physical of a cornerback at all. I think if he was a little bit stronger, his jams could work much better. Really doesn't jam and press. He'll give you a light little tap, but he's not going to try to go shove you and, work off of that because that's not his strength. But he realizes that. He realizes his feet are his strengths. So he does a really good job of just kind of flowing with receivers off the press. But his jam could definitely use improvement. And I think putting on some muscle in the offseason could be the way to do that. Okay, so that is what he's lacking as a press corner. But then we back up a little bit. Staying in man coverage here, I love how he stays with breaks. Now, this is a very big issue for a lot of corners, and it's tough. It does depend a lot who you're going against as well, because some receivers are just really tough to keep up with. For example, I was watching Tyson Campbell today, and he was going against Devontae Smith, and man, Campbell could stick with him until about the end of the route. Then as soon as the end of the route happened, he would just break off and work his way back to the football, and Campbell had no shot. And it was just times he would slip and fall. He just couldn't keep up with him breaking routes. However, Rodarius Williams, while not playing Devontae Smith, he can stick out of breaks. And I think that's really important when you talk about some of the best route runners that the Lions have faced. Think about the type of guys that we're going against every year, right? We're going against Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in the league in terms of route running. He is so smooth and tough to keep up with out of breaks. I'm talking, okay, a couple steps forward and breaking inside. Receivers have cornerbacks have a really tough time sticking with that. Keep with you out of those breaks. A lot of cornerbacks struggle with that. I mean, we play against a lot of good receivers. The Bears, they could be looking at bringing in a receiver. They have Allen Robinson coming back. Then you look at a team like the Vikings. Of course, they have Adam Thielen. I mean, we got some really good route runners that we got to face up against. And Rodarius sticks out of breaks so well. This was one of my favorite plays here. So smooth. And this is kind of like a vet move, in my opinion. Usually, you don't want to turn your back out of breaks here, but this is an in-breaking route for the receiver. And watch how he just kind of like, okay, I'm going to spin around. Instead of trying to be in an awkward position and trying to, flip his whole body and get back and, really change his weight and where his momentum's going. Instead, he just says, I'm going to just spin around out of this because he's already backing up that direction, and he slides right back down in coverage and just closes that gap. That was clean. That's clean. And he does, like I said, he doesn't lose balance out of those. The only time he seems to lose balance is on like little zig routes, things like that. They usually don't throw to him still, but it's on like little zig routes. Sometimes he'll find himself a little off, but those are like 2-yard passes. I mean, it's nothing down the field. Out of breaks, though, he sticks better in man coverage than I've seen a lot of cornerbacks do. Again, not the best competition, I will give you that, but he can definitely stick out of breaks. The thing with young cornerbacks is that they get very jumpy, and it gets them out of position because they bite on fakes, head fakes. They bite on double moves, and that's what we saw a lot with Jeff Okudah last year. last year, he was biting on those things. He was a very young corner, right? He wasn't as disciplined. He wasn't as patient. And that can lead to, yeah, sometimes you'll get a big play, but you can also get some bad plays. You got to know when to pick and choose. Slay had that down really well when he was a vet. He knew when, to break on things, and certain times like that pick against Minnesota was awesome, but he knew when to do it. He doesn't do it all the time. You have to really read the quarterback's eyes. And I think Rodarius, playing so long at Oklahoma State, has that. He's not very, jumpy. He's not very giddy. He really is patient back there, but he knows when to jump. He knows based on the quarterback's size, as soon as he sees any of that throwing motion, he jumps down on routes and makes plays. That really started to pick up 2020. I don't know if he had all that in prior years, but I think his experience has led to him being, again, more complete and more seasoned right now. And I think it's really going to help you in coverage instantly. I don't think it will take as much time for him to really figure that stuff out. Went and ran his 40 in a 4.5 time, which was a little bit below average, not the best speed there. And I think the concern in terms of coverage here would be the long speed. If you have him running straight, just in a straight line deep, didn't show that much on film, but it is something that projects that it could be an issue at the next level against some of the really fast receivers. That could be an issue potentially, just flipping and running 40, 50 yards down the field. Can he keep up, or will he get slightly gapped in those situations? However, he does have that closing burst, drag routes, those kind of things. Now, it's not elite, so you're definitely going to have good linebacker play over the middle, clogging passing lanes to force the quarterback to hold it just a slightly longer. That way he can work his way back around, just like most cornerbacks have to, but he does have that closing burst to get back on those plays. Okay, so drag routes are tough to cover, especially in man coverage. So you have to have a lot of tricks up your sleeve, and that's why his ability to stay off the press is so impressive, but also if those linebackers can clog some of those passing lanes, he's able to get back down and work his way back down with this closing speed on those drag routes, crossers, things like that.
I think this is a good example. Rodarius at the top of the screen here. You're going to watch him close on this, deep drag route, so you'll see the closing speed. But it's also an example of where I think he lacks some physicality at the point of attack, and he's not able to make a play on this football. He's got the length to get there. He just doesn't play as physical at the point of attack. And again, I think he could add a little bit of muscle to his game. But look at this. Linebackers help, but he's able to close down on this. He's in good position here, just not making a play on the football. And he does lack that sometimes. I think it's the physical side of his game there.
He does get caught face guarding a lot, and it causes him to sometimes miss things that are going around him. Not like flags and things like that, but because he sometimes gets in that zone, he'll be following his receiver down the field, and he won't really know what's going on at field. So if it's a handoff or a run, he's really late to see that, and he'll be 30 yards down the field following a receiver that's not even, going to get the football because he's not even really running out for a pass. Sometimes he does get face guarding, but the way that he makes up for that is if it is a pass play, he does a tremendous job of turning his head around when the ball's in the air. You can just tell he reads the receiver's eyes. As soon as that receiver just shows any sign that the ball is coming towards him, he flips his head around, he makes a play on the football. There's a lot of corners that have issues with that. I would say Corn Elder has an issue with that, right? And he's been in the league for a little while now. He face guards, he'll play his man coverage, but whatever tells he can get from the receiver, he'll turn around, he'll get his head up there, and he'll be able to make a play, and that causes him from avoiding, those penalties where you don't turn your head around, because you will get flagged for that in the NFL. If you don't turn your head around, you're going to get flagged all day long, and you hate that. But he gets his head turned around. He just gets face guarded because that's what he does, but he turns his head around. However, if there's no pass, he never has a sign to turn his head around because the receiver's just running a route. So in that case, then he's kind of out of the play and he kind of takes himself out of it. So that's the one place where he maybe could get better, is just peeking, being able to peek in the backfield a little bit there. But I think some of that is because he's not the fastest cornerback. So when the receivers take him deep, he's really got to just run with him and focus on running with the receiver, because if he is trying to peek in the backfield, if it was a pass, he could get burned deep. So it's not a big issue. It just is something that you'll notice when you watch him in coverage. That moves me to zone coverage. In zone coverage, I like him in cover 3. That seemed to be a majority where he played. I do like him playing underneath. Now, however, that usually comes in the cover 2, where you're playing those flats and the safety has the deep over top. I like him playing those underneath routes a lot. And he is experienced in the cover 3, but I like him playing underneath. I really do, because he seems to get really good depth. He seems to really get good depth between the receiver who's going to be behind him, maybe if a tight end's in the flat. Really just knowing how much room he has to give and how much space he needs to give to be able to come up, to be able to back up and make a play on the football. He just has a really good feel for where to be there.
Here's a good example of their cover 3. Bottom of the screen, you have a press bail. Top of the screen is Rodarius Williams, and obviously you have the single high safety deep. So they're going to drop into a cover 3 here, and he just has good depth. He's able to see everything, keeps everything in front of him. Yeah, I do think he shoots down late sometimes, but it's really well job done here by Oklahoma State.
Now, when he's behind the receiver, if he's the guy that's dropping deep, right, and someone else is sliding over to take the underneath route, he tends sometimes to get a little bit too far behind, and he's late to come down and make a play on the football, and that can cause for, space between him and the receiver. I think it's an issue we thought with Jeff Okudah last season trying to adjust to cover 3, is that he would get a little bit too far back, and he wasn't able to get back into the play. I've noticed that a few times with Rodarius because he's not able to get back into those plays, and he's just a little late to make a play on the football. But underneath, he's really good. I think he's still good in the back end when he drops deep because he does have a really good feel of how much depth he needs to get back to something. He just doesn't attack down always fast enough. However, in zone coverage, I think there's enough experience here because of how long he's played. And I think what the Lions are going to do defensively with so much cover 3, I think he'd be a fine fit in it. Do I think he'd be perfect? No, I think he'd take some time. He still have to get better and improve there and improve to be a little bit more, honestly, more aggressive. But I think he can do it. There's really not things that I'm worried about in coverage. There's not many red flags here. But where the red flags come into play is the run defense to me. People you can read about Rodarius and they'll tell you he's a physical corner, and I don't know what they're watching. Maybe you see it. I don't see it. I don't see a physical corner that's really impactful against the run game. I just don't see that. Do see a much improved tackler. He doesn't miss many tackles. Last season specifically, doesn't miss many tackles, so that's good. However, his form is kind of out of whack. I mean, I guess as long as you're bringing the ball carrier down, that's all that matters. But it does look kind of messed up sometimes. But hey, if you bring him down, you bring him down, I guess. Do whatever you got to do. He doesn't really, though, get low and drive kind of through the waist. Sometimes he just kind of grabs up top, and it just looks awkward. And that will lead to missed tackles against some of the tougher guys to bring down at the next level. But as a run defender, I mean, what he lacks is he just doesn't show that aggressiveness. Doesn't seem to want to go down and make the tackle. He's just like, okay, if I have to, I'll do it. That's the vibe I get when I watch him. It's not that he can't do it. It's not that he doesn't have the size to do it. I mean, his form doesn't look the best, and maybe that's just something that he needs work with, and he'd be better there. But at least in college, he doesn't show that I want to go down and play like a rocket and hit somebody. And the concern with that is when you look at all of our cornerbacks, brought in Dunbar, we brought in Elder, these guys can tackle. Or they want to tackle. They want to go hit. Rodarius didn't look like he wanted it to go hit. He just kind of looked like, okay, I'm just going to kind of stay back here. And I'll fill my lane. I'll make sure that he doesn't get here or he can't go by me. But I'm just going to try to force him back inside. I don't really want to be the guy to make tackle. He doesn't show overly aggressive as a run defender. And that's the thing that I like. And this play, I hated this play. This was my least favorite play from Rodarius. And I was like, I don't like this. He kind of just gave up on this. And this is the thing. He just doesn't show the knack for I want to go hit somebody. I did not like this play whatsoever. I did not like this play. I love his attitude as a coverage guy, though. He's more willing to jump down on things in coverage than he is as a run defender.
This goes back to what we said earlier of knowing when to jump down. Watch him read the quarterback size on the screen. And look, he jumps down and makes play. I don't know why this is a screen. This is a bad call to me. I think he got there nearly with the ball did, but I think they're frustrated because they weren't able to complete a pass on him all game.
We're just honestly irritated because they couldn't complete anything his way this game against Tulsa. But man, he jumps down on this. Look how he reads the quarterback size here. As soon as he sees the quarterback and he turns that direction, he jumps down and makes a play on this football. He's willing to do that, but as a run defender, he's just not super, aggressive. He's just kind of like laid back. The big issues for Rodarius as a run defender is he really struggles to disengage from blockers, and this can always be an issue with cornerbacks, but it's definitely an issue for him, maybe more than a lot of other players. He just has a tough time getting involved, even when he wants to, on his wide receiver screens, things like that, because he just can't shed blocks, down the field. He's just not very good at it. And that's why I think adding a little more muscle to him could definitely do work some wonders, honestly. I think he could tackle. I think he has the size to do it, and we've seen it. He will every once in a while show that aggressiveness. He's more aggressive against the receivers that catch the ball than he is the running back side of the backfield. So I know he can do it. I know he'll do it because he does have a lot of pride, and he's not going to, let a guy run right past him. However, it just doesn't show enough willingness to go down and support out of the backfield. And that's where I think he's really lacking in terms of the fit for the Detroit Lions, because he needs that Dan Campbell kneecap biting mentality. And maybe they can get that out of him at the next level. Maybe they can help him with that, and they can make him more into that guy. I don't know. Or maybe they're not that worried about it, and they're okay with that.
I thought this was just a very heady play. This time he actually does slide to the slot here. Didn't do it often, but he did here, and that's probably because he's not super aggressive as a tackler. Regardless, though, watch him kind of follow this route, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to stick with it. And then the quarterback rolls out, and he's like, yeah, just forget it. I'm going to chase the quarterback, knowing that the quarterback can't get the ball back over there. I just thought it was kind of a heads-up play, to try to just get over there and support instead of going the opposite direction where there had been no help.
Good length, so he's able to make the play on the football, above average length, I should say, and that helps him at the point of attack to make a play on the football. Doesn't have as many interceptions as you would like. I've heard, earlier in his career, he did a rough job of, really turning his head around and tracking the football in the air, but it's definitely improved. 2020 looked really good turning his head around. Just just doesn't have those interceptions. But on only 21 targets, how are you going to have interceptions? Like, they're not throwing the ball your direction. So it's tough to come up with picks. But he's very good in coverage. I mean, he's willing to shoot down and go make plays. You know, he's going to read the quarterback's eyes. Slight things that he could improve upon, but there's no flags. It's as a run defender, it's just his attitude as a run defender, I think, is where the flags are. But he did tackle way better last season, which was huge for him. He looks so much better in coverage at tracking the football in the air. All I've heard is that in the past he wasn't as good at it, but he looked really good at it last season. He just didn't have enough opportunities to come up with interceptions. Like, again, 10 receptions in 9 games. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? People don't target him. And if that's how a cornerback works, I'm fine with that. If I got a cornerback that teams don't want to throw the football to, that works for me, man. Like I said, we got a lot of tough receivers, and we need guys that can play man, because I'm expecting a lot of man next season, and I know we can do that. So Rodarius makes a lot of sense. I don't know if he's got that slot versatility is the only thing that worries me, because I don't know if he can do that. I mean, he's not the most willing in the box, and that's probably why they keep him out of that role. I think he has the build and quickness to do it. I do. I really do there. But that's something that's kind of to be determined. So, we'll see what happens with him, but I definitely think this is someone to keep an eye on. And if you want a mid to late round target for the Detroit Lions, to me, he fits the scheme, and it's definitely someone we can look for, because this guy can cover. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.